Hey, Algebra 1 students, here we are in section 3.7. We're getting to the end of chapter 3, and we're looking at percent of change. And so we don't have any vocabulary today, so we're getting straight into the mix of saying, find the percent of change. So state whether each percent of change is a percent increase or percent decrease. Then find each percent of change. So first of all, I'd like to start off with just a basic idea. I know you guys have all kinds of different ways of attacking percentage problems. I want us to work on attacking percentage problems with this concept. We're going to deal with part over whole is equal to percent over 100. And sometimes I might write it, instead of writing the word percent out, I might write the little symbol percent. And so what this is going to do is always help me or guide us, I should say, through our problems. And part over whole and percent over 100. Because remember, 100% is everything, is the whole. And the part we're concerned about is the percentage. Remember, percentage per 100, right? Right? All right. So let's take a look at what's going on. State whether each percentage, we already read this, percentage of change is a percent of increase or decrease. So if the original was 25 and the new is 28, clearly this is a percent increase because we've got an increase. So the first part is that it's a percent increase. And the second part is to figure out by how much. Now, this is the thing. This is going to be our guiding force when we deal with any percentages. But when we're dealing with percent increase or percent decrease, this is what we'll do. We consider not the whole, but the original. And then we consider the change amount as the part we're concerned about. Right? So think about it. Whenever you're thinking about, whenever you're dealing with considering percentages, if you're talking about percentages, like, I'm sorry, I just mumbled. But if I say I gained 20% of my weight, what is the whole that I'm comparing it to? I'm comparing it to my original weight. And if I gained, I need to figure out what the change is in that weight. Does that kind of make sense? All right, let's see how we can break this down for this problem. So over here, we've got the original. The original is 25, and the new amount is 28. Well, what is that increase? That change amount is 3. So notice I had to do 28 minus 25 to figure out what that change was. And then I'm going to figure out what the percentage is, because that's what I'm looking for, over 100. We can cross multiply and solve this like a proportion. Or we can just recognize that 25 times 4 is 100. Therefore, I need to multiply this by 4, and I get that the answer is 12%. So I have a 12% increase here. This is a 12% increase. Go over that again if it felt a little uncomfortable, because we're really going to be working with this topic heavily. And this is something you want to really be familiar with. So this next one over here, the original is 30, and my new is 12. Well, clearly this is a percent decrease. A percent decrease, and we want to figure out by how much. Well, we have to figure out the change amount. Now, this doesn't have to be a negative number. We can just think about the difference. The difference between 30 and 12 is going to be 18. So I'm comparing 18 to my original amount of 30. So I have a decrease of 18, you can see, because it's a percent decrease. I'm going to do the same thing I did before. X for my percentage, 100 for the whole amount that I'm comparing it to, the original amount. And I'm going to do the thing. Multiply, cross multiply here. 180, no, just kidding, making sure you're paying attention. 1,800 is equal to 30x. Are you guys with me? And now when I solve this, I need to isolate x, so I'm going to divide both sides by 30, because that's how 30 is attached to x, by multiplication. Do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. And then 3 goes into that. 3 goes into 18 6 times, and the 0 comes along for the ride. So 3 goes into 180 60 times. So I have a 60% decrease. So this is really necessary for us to understand, because when you hear things like, and I'm going to give you a real interesting one in a second. When you hear things like, oh, there was a 60% decrease in this happening, or 20% increase, you need to know what you're working with. You need to know what the original is, so you understand the actual effect of that number. If I said I went from 30 to 12, would you have thought about that as a 60% decrease? I was watching a show, and it was about health, and they talked about the increase of cancer in people who ate meat, particularly the type of meat they were talking about is like processed meat, like cold cuts and stuff like that. And it said, and the information said that the rate of cancer goes up 50% if you eat processed meats. Pretty scary, right? And it is a scary thing. And I do believe that that's a fact, but you have to understand what it means. And this is about being a thoughtful person, or being a mathematically savvy person, right? Which you guys are developing into. Even if you don't love the subject, it really is important for you to understand. Well, you have to think about what the original rate of cancer is. Well, the original rate of cancer in the people that they were talking about was, I think it was 4 out of 1,000. And that's not small. I mean, that's a serious thing. 4 out of 1,000. So when the rate of cancer goes up 50%, if you eat processed meat, if this is the general situation, it goes up 50%. Well, what's 50% of 4? Hopefully you know that that's 2. So now instead of being 4 out of 1,000, it's 6 out of 1,000 people. Let me write 1,000, right? 6 out of 1,000 people. Think about this. This is not as alarming as 50%. So when you are hearing news and information, you have to understand what they're comparing it to. So the rate of cancer goes up 50% if you eat processed meat. Scary. It sounds like you're now doubling your chance of getting cancer. And you're right. If this is the general population, 4 people out of 1,000 will get cancer, then if you're eating processed meat, a community of people eating processed meat, then that's going to go up. Then more people, double, not double, double, you're going to add half of the original amount, and that's what the change is. It's a little bit less significant, but it is important. So just pointing out some facts. Anyway, let's take a look at this next example. So we're looking at example 2, and we're going to find the missing value. The field used by the National Football League, NFL, is 120 yards long. The length of the field used by the Canadian Football League is 25% longer than the one used by the NFL. What is the length of the field used by the CFL, the Canadian Football League? Since we're dealing with the change over the percent change, I'm going to hook it up the way we usually do. Change over the original is equal to percent over 100. So let's do our thing. Well, we're given the percentage, 25% out of 100. But what is the 100%? What are we comparing it to? The standard that we're talking about, the length of the field used by the Canadian Football League is 25% longer than what? Than this original, than the NFL. We're going to use 120 for the original because that's the thing we're comparing it to. And we're going to put this X here because this X will tell me how much longer the Canadian football field is than the American football field, the National Football League. So we solve this like we would any proportion. We can cross multiply. But as I look at this, I see I can reduce this. So I'm going to do that before I start cross multiplying. It's going to save me a couple of extra steps. So 25 over 100 is actually 1 over 4, right? And so now I can cross multiply with ease. And I get that 120 is equal to 4x. Divide both sides by 4. And I'm going to get 30. So what does that refer to? What does this X tell me? It tells me the change, or in this case, the difference, right? This is the difference between the Canadian Football League's field and the American football, or the National Football League's field. I'm trying to get it all out. However, this doesn't answer the question. It says, what is the length of the field? What do you think we're going to have to do with this 30? It's not 30, but it's what? It's NFL plus 25% more. It's the NFL's plus 25% more. Well, what's the NFL's length of their field? Is 120 yards plus 25% of that was 30, and so we get 150 yards. So the CFL has a field that's 150 yards. All right, so here we go. We've got find the amount after sales tax. A concert ticket costs $45, and if the sales tax is $6.25, what is the total price of the ticket? So I'm gonna set this up in a way that you probably would not, but let's think about it this way. So I know that the original price is $45. right? And so that's 100% of the original cost. I want to know, now this is going to be a little bit different. I could definitely find out what 6.25% is and do my problem that way. But what I'm going to do is actually try to figure out something else. I want to know what 106.25% is. Why would I want to know that? Why would I want to know what 106.25% is? I'm hoping that you see that this is 6.25 and 100%. So what this gives me is the original price plus the extra percentage. And then so now if I can figure this out, I'm good to go. Cross multiply and do the thing that I'm called to do. So I'm going to do that. Multiply 45 times 106.25. And I'm going to divide both sides by 100. And I can use my calculator to get the answer. I want you to watch this for a second. So x is equal to 45 times, if I divide 100 into this, I'm going to get 1.0625. Can you see that? I'm dividing 100 into just this part here, and I get 1.0625. You may have been taught to do this problem in this way before. A concert ticket costs $45. If you need to know what the sales tax is, it's going to be 1 plus 0.625 percentage, and when you multiply those two together, you get a grand total of $47.81. Now, you could have just found out what the 6.25% would be, right? So if we did that, it would be x over 45 is equal to 6.25 over 100, and then cross multiply 100x is equal to 6.25 times 45. You walking down my street, right? Then we divide both sides by 100, and watch what I'm going to do. If I divide this guy by 100, I get 0.0625. Remember, moving the decimal place over 2 times. When you divide by 100, and I'm going to multiply that by 45. You've done this before. You have. You get $2.81, and then you got to add that back to the original price. Both are effective ways. This one's just a little bit more straightforward. And here's our final example for this lesson. We're going to find the amount of a discount. A sweater is on sale for 35% off the original price. If the original price of the sweater was $38, what is the discounted price? Now here I'm going to ask you to again try to think about this in one step. So if I know that it's $38 is the original, and I know that that's 100% of the original price, and it's on sale for 35% off, the question is, how much are they leaving on? If they're taking 35% off, that means they're leaving 65% on for me to pay for it, and that's the discounted price. Did you see that? 100 minus 35 is going to give me that 65%. And so with that in mind, I'm going to use 65% to actually come up with the answer. So then now I'm going to say I want to know what 65% of 38 is, because that's going to take the 35% off. Kind of neat, huh? All right, let's go ahead and do it. So we have 100 times x is equal to 38 times 65. I'm going to divide both sides by 100. Then I get that x is equal to 38 times, well, 65 divided by 100 is 0.65. And so this is going to give me $24.70. Now, I know that that was a little bit trickier doing the one-step thing. Yes, you could have figured out what 35% was and then subtracted it from the 38. Totally legit. But sometimes it's nicer to do things in a one-step motion because you have less chance for mistake. So I want you to try a couple problems the way we just discussed and do your best, and let's talk about it. I look forward to talking to you soon. Take good care. Bye-bye.